All right, we're going to talk about Bucks Celtics series round two conference semifinals. Game one has concluded. Our picks that we talked about last week comprehensively. Then we had technical malfunctions. Then we just had to post it online in written format. So here we are. We're going to obviously break down these picks again. So who wants to go first? You or me?
I'll go first because I'm reading the notes that you left on the Facebook page, which are really helpful. So, um, obviously, game one's already occurred, so we can look at that and say what is the precedence been said. I picked Celtics in six, and unfortunately, they've lost game one at home, which is a bit of a bad omen. If I would hindsight change my pick off one game, it'd be a bit irresponsible. Today, I looked at the stats. They didn't have really anything that stood out. The defensive numbers, rebounding wise, turnovers, etc., weren't really that big in the margin, but a 12-point margin makes you think that something went wrong. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just didn't play very well. They just didn't shoot to the expectation that they had. And I think a little bit of that is the sizing. The Bucks are a big team. They can throw out Giannis, Lopez, and Portis. But I think the Celtics will figure it out. Obviously, if I pick them, I have to vouch for that pick. Middleton's clearly not coming back, I think, for this series. I think there's a bit of a collective understanding that MCL sprain is a lot worse than, Booker's hamstring was, for example. So it's not coming back in a couple of games. I feel like, as I said, the Celtics are surging and they'll figure it out. I think the adjustments, the defensive adjustments that they've made as the season's progressed, it's an interesting point to make, but their start to the season being essentially 500 for almost 40 games. And then kind of clicking it together. They have very similar to last year with the Hawks in terms of figuring it out late in the season and kind of surging. And I will stick with them on that front.
Well, you have to stick with them, right? That's the whole idea of picking them. Yeah. But I guess, look, game one obviously in the books. I think you're right. There's a few observations there I think we can take already. I think firstly, both teams, I think, shot fairly poorly. I think Giannis had a fairly poor shooting game by his standards, but he still got a triple-double, and they still got a double-digit win on the road. And I think, obviously, I picked Bucks in six, feeling I'd pick Bucks to go all the way. So obviously, I think I talked about growing pains. I think today sort of showed the Boston team is much less championship experience than the Bucks that obviously won it last year at this stage still. And I think they'll have their day where they'll make the finals. I think, this unit, if they stay together and they stay healthy. Luckily for them, Marcus Smart, that injury didn't look good initially when I saw the clip real quickly when it happened. And I was like, what is it? But I think he came back, didn't he, into the game later, and it looks like nothing too major. So that was fortunate for Boston. But I think, look, obviously, I think Giannis is the key here. I don't think they've got anyone that can really match him up one-on-one to actually stop what he can do to impact the game. If it's not scoring 40 points, his game now can obviously, encompass sort of distributing and creating for his teammates and hitting those open shooters on the wings now. And obviously, making the right plays. And I think that's a huge challenge that Boston's going to have to face to adjust to.
Yeah, look, I think after watching game one, I'd love to change my pick almost as a knee-jerk reaction because the sizing of the Bucks, as I alluded to before, was really quite problematic. Horford and Tice cannot contain Giannis at all, and Tatum and Brown aren't going to do the same either. So the defensive identity they built in the first round isn't as applicable here because Giannis doesn't settle for jump shots. And they do have three-point shooters that are supporting Giannis and what he's doing, opposed to the Nets that were really just a two-man show. So it'll be interesting to see if they drop game two. I would almost change my pick instantly to like Bucks and 5 max, because they're clearly not wait and see.
I think in the video last week I commented that obviously the adjustment that the Bucks have made with the Middleton injury was to slide Portis into the starting lineup, and he's been playing well. Not only is obviously he's sort of doing what he does in double digits, but he's also knocking down that three ball. I think that's critical to obviously stretch the floor. Whether he's playing, I don't know, effectively the 3 spot on the wing, to be able to knock down that shot, to really sort of pull defenders and keep them honest away from Giannis and the paint as well. So, look, they've got a lot of size there, Portis, Lopez, and Giannis. look, Celtics going to have the hands full, so we'll see what happens. But you're right. I think Celtics have to grab 1 out of 2 now, or they have to grab the second game at home. Otherwise, going back to Milwaukee down 0-2, that's a pretty sizable hole.